So today we are looking at a very interesting topic that I think most people can relate to. Breakups. And why are they so challenging and so emotionally draining? Why is that the case? And what can we do to stand up from them? So, Quinton, why are breakups so difficult?
Breakups, it's so difficult because you already invested your heart into this relationship. And part of it, you created a fantasy. By going into a relationship, you already have a fantasy. You already built a future. And then the first thing of a breakup is shock. Shock automatically goes into denial. It's like, it cannot be. This can't be true. And that's exactly what is experiencing in a relationship after a breakup as well.
And if we think about Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's grief cycle, shock is the very first thing that hits you. And then you go into denial and bargaining and anger and depression. You cycle through these emotions or these stages, sometimes all in one day. We must not underestimate the impact that a loss has. So you've lost the picture of what you think the relationship. You've lost the person. The person is not there anymore. You've lost the future image that you had about how you would grow old together, what you would still do together, places that you would visit, things that you would do, children that you might have, all those fantasies, like you say. But have you not also lost the person that you are in relation to that relationship?
Most definitely. You lose a part of your own identity because a part of your identity is also hooked inside the relationship and what a relationship entails. And to lose all of that, it's like you need to rebuild your life. And I think in that moment, there's a lot of uncertainty. There's lots of fear. And then that is many times linked to the shock and the denial phase as well.
I had gone through this cycle of denial and frustration and bargain and anger and, trying to make this relationship work until I got to a point where I realized it's not going to work and I pulled the plug. But for my poor partner, the minute that we broke up, that cycle only started for him. He was then in shock. And he then went through denial, and he then went through bargaining, trying to bargain me back into the relationship and into the anger and into the depression, where I looked like I moved on.
That happens quite often.
Yeah.
Because you already went through a cycle. You already were in bargaining. Before you broke up, you already bargained, like you've mentioned. But you also already went through depression.
Yes.
And the depression is many times quite a challenging phase to go into because you can't communicate that with your partner.
Exactly.
Because you're actually feeling depressed about, is it going to work? Is it not going to work? So it takes quite a lot of guts to say, it's not going to work.
I almost want to say to our listeners, if you have been the one that's been dumped and it looks like the other person is just happily moving on, don't let that fool you. If they the one that broke up with you, they probably went through this cycle in silence and by themselves without you even knowing. So, Quinton, in your clients, how do you see this denial and anger play out?
Automatically, after a person has been dumped, usually anger is one of the predominant emotions that comes up because with that, there comes resentment. I've put in such a lot of energy into this relationship. And the thing of resentment is that resentment always happens because we don't actually resolve the conflict. So all of the conflict which hasn't been resolved, all the unresolved stuff in a relationship, all of that stuff automatically comes to the surface. And that is where anger then comes in. So now they're angry at you, and they're angry at themselves, they're angry at the relationship, they're angry to be dumped. And that creates an emotional roller coaster where they experience this up, this down. Then the bargaining also starts. Could I maybe have done something different? Can I maybe still do something different? Maybe we must go to therapy. Maybe I should have given them more attention. So many times the challenge is now you start looking for the fault within yourself. And now that can also become a bit of self-punishment. Automatically, what also happens, the inner critic really surface. And now they're starting to believe certain things about themselves. Maybe I'm not good enough. I'm maybe not outgoing enough, etc. And many times that inner critic phase is what takes them into the depression phase as well. But the depression phase is very important because we needed the depression, because the word depression says depressed. Something is actually pressing me down. But the word also says deep rest.
Oh.
In that moment, you're actually reflecting. You're actually looking at yourself. You're looking more objectively at the situation. And if you can deal with what is, then you can go into acceptance. The challenge is depression is such a huge concept because different people express things differently. So some people is going to go to overworking, or they're going to find a way to numb out. They're going to drink more. They're going to party more. The challenge of that phase, if you numb out or suppress it, you still don't deal with what is. So you much longer stay there, and you stay stuck there, and you can even get trapped there.
That is the key thing. You have to face that reality through a quiet contemplation.
What you give yourself permission to feel, you also give yourself permission to heal. If you numb out and you escape, you never give yourself the ability and the capacity to feel.
So how do you break through? How do you get to acceptance? If acceptance is where the light shines and out of the dark valley of despair, how do you break through to that light?
First of all, you need to deal with what is awareness. I need to become aware of my role I played in it. Because what people do, people get stuck in depression because they also get stuck in, I'm the victim, poor me, how can this happen to me? And now the whole thought pattern becomes negative. So therefore, they totally get trapped in that negativity. So you need to become aware of your thoughts, aware of your patterns. What is my patterns I had in the relationship? What is the role because we can't always blame the other person, because blame never creates empowerment. You need to take a sense of accountability, because that is when you actually take your power back and say, this I can change. I can't change the past. I can't change what happened. I can't change their choices, their behavior. But I can take accountability for what is mine. And that is the first step. You start looking in a different direction. Because how your psyche works, what you focus on expands. So if you're going to focus on the past and the relationship,
and being done in by, and the victim that's being dumped,
so what you focus on is going to expand. So you can't go forward by focusing on the past. You need to accept what is in order to move forward, and that is one of the most important steps.
Absolutely.
And what I've also noticed is once you take action, it's like you just do something, and it's a small step, but it's a small step in another direction.
The right direction.
And once you take that step, it's like the next step appears, and then the next step appears. But if many people do, they get stuck in that depression, and they don't want to take the next step because they want to see just the perfect picture, which they need to create, and they only can create it by taking that relevant steps. The healing journey can never be lazy, and all the support is there. I've always seen, if you're looking for support and help, you'll find it. There's therapists, there's friends, there's free therapy. The moment you put yourself out there, it's available.
Yes.
So you just need to have willingness to do the work.
So what I'm hearing you say is you have to take the first step. So for our listeners out there, if you are currently in the valley of despair, or maybe toggling between anger and bargaining and depression and struggling with acceptance, maybe it's just to sit down quietly and actually reflect.
Give yourself permission to feel. Because in the end result is worth it. And every choice has a consequence.
Well, Quinton, thank you for sharing your wisdom today. And if you liked and found value in what we shared today, subscribe to our channel and look out for upcoming webinars about smart relationships.
Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for listening. And if this resonated with you and you would like to learn more about smart relationships, like and subscribe and look out for more videos on relationships.